just going on YouTube. This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by American Idol singer Clay Aiken. Basically, this product is called Measure of a Man, and it came out in the fall of 2003. So there were a series of these American Idol singles that did have some multi-platinum albums within those pitches, particularly Kelly Clarkson, Ruben Studdard, Justin Guarini, some of those type folks, Carrie Underwood later on as far as those pitches can happen. But just within the fair, I wanted to get to Clay Aiken, see what this particular product is about. So I do remember the occasional hit that Clay Aiken particularly stacked up in the early and mid 2000s as far as what's first going to happen. So it's just within the appeal is the aspect. Now this is more in the adult contemporary type chart, more charts where you'd hear Adele and Sam Smith and more folks like John Mayer, some of those type folks in particular just within the pitch. This album severely lacks up-tempo songs within the pitch behind it. There are a couple minor foot tap kind of grooves on here, but for the most part the main aspect and prospect about this particular product are the ballads. This is a very moody type product, hard on its sleeve, pretty full bound within the pitch behind it. Not like there's a problem with it. It has the particularly tugging type songs and it works to that particular extent as long as you're in more of a mindset to want to have your heart on your sleeve. If you're not really feeling the open type prospect of this being more kind of not necessarily emo within a typical kind of alternative emo sense, but just in a more vanilla kind of pop emo type sense where you're just really letting your emotions show some of those type pitches. It just doesn't have as much full bounces within the pitch as far as saying that this is pretty similar to Celine Dion within those pitches. I'm going to mention here probably a couple of times on this particular product just in a more male singer type format, just in the pitch, that same sort of looming kind of just 90s pop type appeal. This one, I mean, it has traces of 2000s pop in here. It has some of that dredge of 4 o'clock p.m. after workshift type malaise about it, but for a lot of phases just the pitch behind it has a lot of aspects of just something of a pop album from 96, 97, 98, some of those type fares. Can't think of too many folks apart from Celine Dion that it reminds me of in particular. Not quite as much Mariah Carey. She was a little bit more up-tempo group within the pitch, but just within the concept, when you think of adult contemporary, this is a pretty sensible type one to kind of get within that particular fare. So just a good type of appeal for that within the aspect. It's a good alternative to John Mayer, some of those type folks just within the pitch, just without the acoustic guitar and pitches like that. I'd have to say similar format to where you'd be hearing songs like Your Body is a Wonderland, some of those type fares just within the aspect. But I look after it here, so yeah, I would feel this album's going to get a classic score, but within the pitch you have to say to the relative aspect that the social score will probably not as full bound as because the pitch behind it, it's a little bit trickier to kind of convey within the aspect of the more typical kind of grooves of dance clubs and pitches like that. So it's just the fashion. Now when it comes to when you would think of Panera-bread and a bookstore type vibe, something to a coffee shop, more mud house type places where there's going to be more kind of folk music type playing within the pitch, or a little bit more within a smoky kind of upkeep behind it, has more popularity just within the sense behind it. But it's just kind of the tone that it's not really as full bound kind of Jersey type music, not really as full bound. It's not to say that it couldn't, but it's just kind of the concept that it just is a little bit more, it just doesn't have that abrasive kind of rough factor about it within the pitch behind it. So it just has a little bit more contemporary typeness and the more standard kind of just less kind of rash type format. But it's a good type of appeal just being able to stay here. I do recommend this particular record just within the aspect behind it. Just has several dope singles on this particular product and just nails the appeal with a lot of these aspects. So it's just good type tone. This nails the particular vibe of a more up-tempo kind of pop album within the pitch behind. I mean, for the most part, usually pop albums do kind of have more dance festivities about it. So it's just within the concept. And I like the particular appeal about it. When you think about that particular jive, it just is kind of getting jive in a bookstore. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept as far as saying that there are some ones on here. There are, originally I was thinking that only the song Touch is the only real song with some relative dance kind of groove about it. But there is some moments just with the aspect of some cut loose. But it's just kind of been more kind of in a feel-good type mode as far as getting some food, something like that. Just kind of some basic kind of bounds of just some mild kind of stepping within the pitch. I mean, there's some slow dance songs on here, a lot of good moody ballads within the pitch. It's the concept. It's not quite as full bound kind of gothic within the pitch as far as its moodiness, but it does have the aspect of just something that you would see in a tear jerking kind of movie, something like Ladder 49 or one of those type of movies. Trying to think of some of those 2000s type movies where it just would have the critics crying pitches like that. Some of those type aspects. It's kind of more tugging within the aspect within a typical kind of vanilla type sense within the moody fashion. So it has its aspect just as far as that particular vibe kind of goes along with it. Just kind of the appeal kind of having the jive just within the sense of also having the ability to kind of convey things as far as just having something that actually something that kind of captivates emotions within the pitch. So it's a good type tone for that. But I look after it. So yeah, there were 4 singles off this product, really 5. Wikipedia lists on Clay Aiken's discography that there was a fifth single in the song "Measure of a Man," the title track. So we'll get to some of these here. But basically, "Invisible" is the lead single. It's like a glazed kind of summer lick, typical weekday push kind of get here. Just it's like a good makeshift outing, grab some food, and just some 4 o'clock p.m. type dredge within the pitch. So just kind of the concept of something Rihanna would kind of do with like a song like "Shut Up and Drive." Some of those type pitches I'd have to say. It's a little bit more factory, adult, contemporary, just a little bit more slowed down within pitch. Just typical. It feels like this particular format. This is definitely something that like MySpace music kind of took the tempo of in a lot of fashions. You probably heard several songs like this if you remember MySpace days from like 2005, 2006. Some of those type fairs that just like that alternative rock and acoustic lick kind of malaise about that particular appeal. This after workshift just embrace as far as this pitch kind of go. Just typical kind of Tuesday, Wednesday type music within the appeal, but it does have some relative stuff about it. Just kind of one, not so much just going home watching the news pitches like that, but actually the aspect of just a little bit of upkeep just within the pitch as far as like something to do within the aspect. Maybe not going to like a dance club, pounding shots, but just within the pitch of at least having like some minor kind of outings within the sense of at least a little bit of activity within the pitch. But it is relative disc, some good workship embrace. There's several of these songs in here that are pretty toolkit friendly for like that workplace kind of environment, that blue collar kind of work a day. The Way is the second single here, and this is another one that the songs The Way and Solitaire were released as like a combined single as far as this pitch can happen, both of which peaked at number 4 in the Billboard 100, so this was a top 5 single, pretty big deal for that back in the day as far as this fair is going to happen. But The Way, it's like a smoky kind of slow dance evening dredge kind of get here. The Way / Solitaire is the second and third single. It's kind of a combined single as far as this pitch can happen, but The Way is basically like a smoky kind of slow dance evening dredge kind of get here. Just a good relief from like a long day slag I'd have to say within those pitches, and this is just like a song for some ailments whisked away as far as this pitch is going to go. This within the aspect, this would be kind of like a ballroom dance type pitch within the tone, one of the few type ones for like a little bit more social commotion. Now there are enough songs on here that do have the pitch like that particular aspect of just grabbing some food and pitches like that in a more kind of relative activity type fashion, like some minor type fare, just like typical kind of mundane typeness within the pitch. But this is one that just feels like a little bit more of like at a venue, just within a more platonic type sense. Not so much platonic in terms of like the sense, but just plainer, not so much with like spice or just the particular aspect, a little bit more kind of jive and disc, like more smokiness, sultriness just in the pitch, just a little bit more plain and just kind of vanilla within the aspect. Just something that's not, I don't want to say full bound PG within the pitch, but just something that just is not quite as feisty within the pitch behind as far as those aspects can go. Just kind of the tone behind it, just a little bit more romantic tinge as far as those aspects can happen, just in a more slow dance type sense. So it's good type fashion for just something to kind of have as like a wind down type dance groove as far as those pitch can happen. Just probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Now the aspect about this particular song, I don't know if you would go with songs like when you think of more dance spices, when you would think of something by like Pitbull or Kesha or folks like that, some of those type fairs, or other folks like that, like Adam Lambert, some of these particular type folks within the fashion going to this particular song. I just would probably, I just feel like the tempo about this particular song is a good type fashion, but it's probably at about like 15 miles per hour as far as this pitch can go. So this is like basically like it's a dance song within a pitch, but it's just a slow dance kind of down tempo type dance song. So just a little bit more smoky within the pitch behind it. It's a good type tone, a good nice one there. Solitaire is the third single. Now this is another one that kind of has like some of this moody type factor on here that I was talking about with the vanilla type sense. But Solitaire is like a harrowing and kind of sober makeshift ballad to kind of get within those tones. It's like a real talk kind of chug along. I'd say on like a more moody kind of tugging malaise about this with the pitch. So it's just kind of the concept here. A lot of these songs are particularly everyday within the pitch behind it as far as those fairs would kind of go, but this is just one that just kind of feels like it just has the heroin type aspect, just a piercing type one within the appeal behind it, just a typical kind of sober type makeshift, but just like not so much like an upkeep of just having to like get on the grind pitches like that, but just kind of the concept of just like something that just is like, just eye-opening type stuff within the pitch, and just kind of the concept as far as saying that it just has like that appeal, just like typical kind of fashion of just like a taste of standard living within the pitch, of just reality check type music within the tone. So it's just kind of the tone as far as saying, but it just does it within a sense of obviously within a pop type format. It just has the concept of just more personal life type fare within the pitch behind it, but it also works for like some good makeshift dredge within those appeals. But this one is just one of those type ones. There's some ones on here that just have like these piano ballads that just feel like the sort of stuff that Alicia Keys would kind of do, or just more kind of just those ones that you would probably see parodies of, or you would play like the violin, and you just something that like something where you'd play the violin and you just would kind of walk off into the sunset, just a teary-eyed kind of one where there'd be like the comedic kind of parodies of just like, oh, you're being emo right now, you're just being super moody and crybaby within the pitch behind it. It's just some of those type ones. So, you know, you would almost say that this is kind of like a crybaby type album just in the pitch. Not to say a full bound within that particular pitch about it, but it just has the aspect of just like the emotional type factor of what this particular goes along with this kind of concept that this is a tugging type project, just to say within that tone behind it. So has more of that compared to like the aspect, you know, just when you think it's just more vanilla wafer-esque compared to like the rest of the tone behind it, but it does it within a pop type sense within it. I mean, it has the makeshift kind of balance within that particular aspect, which is kind of tone that some of these, I mean, the moody factor definitely works, but it's just basically just the concept. I think it can probably blend with like alternative type fares as far as this pitch can go when you think of something, like when you think of like Good Charlotte or Linkin Park or like, you know, folks like that, like Blink 182 doing some of those emo type songs within the pitch, just having that particular aspect. It's the same sort of pitch, just kind of without like the more vanilla wafer-esque type disc plainness factor. This is not quite as like taciturn pitches like that. I'd say, but it's just within the these are some good ones type here. But it's just the fashion. If you're around more folks that just have like a more rougher type fashion, like if you're around more standard like baseball, hockey, football players, basketball players, then senses pitches like that, it's just kind of tone. There's gonna be like, well, in certain senses, it might be like, what the hell is this? Just within some of those type concepts. So it's just within the fashion as far as saying just the tone. As far as, I mean, I feel like songs like there are some songs within the pitch. I feel like songs like Invisible, Touch, and like another song on here like where when songs like Invisible, Touch, and When You Say You Love Me are some pitches that at least have like some relative jive about them within the aspect of at least not quite being quite as pushover type within the pitch. Not to say pushover full bound, but just within the aspect, just something that has a little bit more just more edge type factor towards it. So this is kind of the concept of this is kind of the tone. It's not to say that this is like a mild type product, but it's just within the pitch that the edge factor is just is something to know going in when you listen to this. If you are, you know, if you're coming from this from like a typical type angle of this, if you're coming from this from like a typical type angle, some of your guy type friends might be like, well, what's going on here within the pitch as far as those aspects kind of have. Not if you're coming from this from like a typical type angle, some of your guy friends might be like, what the hell is this within the pitch? Not to say full bound like that, like it's some sort of sexist type pitch within that particular tone, but it's just within the aspect. It's just kind of the concept is something to know going in that is just a little bit, like I said, it's just more vanilla wafer. Just if you go from, if you do have like this in a playlist and you go from something like In the Club by 50 Cent, and then like a song like, you know, like Enter Sandman by Metallica, some of those type pitches, and then like Solitaire comes on, or like, you know, Solitaire off this album comes on, or like a song like Measure of a Man comes on, or Perfect Day comes on, and just kind of within the pitch that it is like it's a pretty like whiplash kind of difference within the pitch. So it's just something to know going in. I mean, this is an album I recommend. I am going to give a classic score, but it's just within the pitch that it is a 180 from a lot of stuff I've reviewed on this particular channel. This is in the pitch as far as saying that is not an edgy type product. Just something to kind of know within those pitches. It just has like a differential. It's just kind of more softcore, more adult contemporary softcore within those pitches. So just being able to say. But I will carry use the 4 singles as far as those pairs going to have. This is another nice one here. It's like a typical kind of sunset gaze slag kind of get here. Just a vanilla 2000s pop workaday. I'd say within those aspects, as usual errands and activity. I had to say about this one, just an upbeat type one. This is one of those typical kind of MySpace format type songs within the pitch. It seems like an early primer for that particular sound that kicked off throughout the 2000s as far as those first going to happen. This song goes pretty well with Invisible. It's just a little bit more glazed about it within the pitch as far as that particular one goes. I feel like Invisible just has a little bit more pep, a little bit more of jive to kind of get some minor things done within the pitch, but this one's a little bit more just, I will carry is just like I was saying, a little bit more in like the sunset gaze type format, just like the typical concept of just like it has some upbeat kind of pep about it, but it's just in the pitch of just a little bit more kind of ambient with this sense, a little bit more within kickback and like a more relaxed type fashion, good type fare, and just more chill type fare within that particular tone, like a makeshift kind of pop sense. It's good fare for that. Then Measure of a Man's the 5th single. Now this one's not as commonly promoted. I don't know if this had a music video, but at least Wikipedia said that this was released as a single. This didn't chart that heavily. It's like a rainy day kind of makeshift ballad to kind of get here, just a tugging kind of sunset gaze stretch as far as those pitch kind of having good type tones. This is pretty similar to Solitaire within the pitch. So this one, it's a little bit more rainy day within the pitch. Solitaire is just kind of one that's just a sobering type one within the pitch, just kind of one that just has the aspect of this, that particular vibe of just like real talk type fashion, just in the concept of just getting to like job format and pitches like that. But this one's a little bit more moody within the concept of just like maybe you had a crummy day, pitches like that, some of that type of just kind of being in a relatively kind of just basically to say yucky kind of mood, just within that relative phase. I mean, for lack of other words to kind of say within that pitch. It's kind of a yucko type mood just in the pitch, and just like damn, just kind of cursing your luck, drat, rats, damn shit, just some of those type aspects within the tone as far as those pitches kind of go. But it's kind of the concept of just like that malaise, just like that particular type fare, just like the standard slag that kind of goes along with it. So it's good type fare for that, but it's just kind of the concept of some of these moody type ones. I do like the particular moody type factor of this product. It's just a good type tone kind of get some of these, because Clay Aiken's pretty good at these songs just to have some different aspects. I mean, when you actually look after, there's a lot of pep about this particular product, but he does also nail these sad songs pretty well as well. So it's a good type pitch, but it's just kind of the concept that they are tugging. So it's just kind of, that's the thing. This is a tugging album within the pitch. It's not this sad song in terms of like, fuck you, something like that, some of those type tones, but it's just kind of the pitch of just actually having like some lasting kind of forlornness as far as those first going to go. So that's a good type tone for that. But yeah, so I recommend, out of the 12 songs on this particular album, I recommend every song minus the song Run to Me. So to talk about that one, this is like the only song that I just wasn't able to vibe with this full bound within the pitch. I mean, I feel like it's similar to songs like Perfect Day and I Survived You, some of those type pitches, same sort of balladry within the pitch behind it. It's just another stock ballad within some of that type fare, but that's just one. I just kind of question the ofteness of how often I would listen to Run to Me. It's just a dramatic type one. I do like the drama type factor of like Perfect Day a little bit better. That one, and I would also say I Survived You feel like Celine Dion type pitches, but I just don't know the commonness how often I listen to Run to Me within those sorts. But other than that, every song on here I recommend. So I give this album a 10 out of 10. Now, I just would have to say within the fashion as far as these fairs can happen. Once again, just to say the social score will probably not get as high of a score, but it's just within the pitch that there are some good jive songs on here within that particular fair. It's just kind of the concept that they're just a little bit tougher and trickier to track down within the fair behind it. The concept of the dance step out is just kind of very lightly, mildly peppered in within the pitch behind it. But there are some strengths in the ballads as far as this pitch can happen. I do feel like Clay Aiken has the ability to nail these as long as they're just not too wafer-esque within the tone behind it. It's not to say wafer-esque is like a bad type concept, but it's just within the pitch that some of these are a little bit more kind of just, like I said, when you go from like listening to death metal, black metal, some pitches like that, heavy metal, industrial metal, some of those stuff fairs, and then this comes on and it's kind of like an offshoot as far as those pitches can go. So it's just when the tone was just the concept. So, but yeah, to talk about one of the up-tempo songs in here, probably the song with the most ferocious bite, and that's not really saying terribly much within that pitch, not to stay full bound like that, but the concept of like the most ferocious song on here would be the last song you hear on this album, which is the song Touch. It's like a lone kind of up-tempo kick, I'd have to say about this one. Just a nice desperado jiving like a smoky kind of mid-paced. So that's like a nice desperado jiving like a smoky kind of mid-paced dance rivet, I'd have to say about this one. Just a formal ice break kind of fun. So it's just the concept of just like the tone behind this one. When I say formal ice breaks, it's kind of tone of like a mild kind of, maybe like a co-worker type party, some pitches like that. Just something where there'd be something within a formal type format. Just the concept of breaking through the ice pick. It's kind of using the ice pick to break through the ice as far as like the formality type fashion, as far as those fairs going to go along with it. Just that typical kind of fair, just getting past like the initial kind of moments of like, hey, this is still kind of plain and formulaic as far as this fair is going to go. So it's just within the tone as far as that particular going to happen. It's just this simple type tone within the pitch. It's mild type one. Now, obviously, once again, when you think of the ferociousness, obviously, I would probably say in terms like a standard pop song, in terms of the ferociousness, when you think of many other pop artists, like when you think of Kesha, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Adele, some of these type folks, just other folks like that, Adam Lambert, and like like Blood on the Dance Floor and folks like that, some of those type folks just in the pitch of a lot of those particular type fashions, Aiken, Michael Jackson, Prince, some of those type folks, I'd say this is probably like a 3 out of 10 or a 3.5 out of 10 in terms of like the relative kind of spark that it particularly has, but it's still a good taste to kind of get on this particular album as far as having something with that jive of just having like some liveliness as far as those factors kind of goes. It's a good type aspect. Pretty much, it stands out on this particular album because it just feels like this probably needed to be exploited a lot further within some of those type pitches. It has a good type tone about it. Just like I said, those desperado type vibes about it, but it's just in the pitch that it really does not have like, there's some other moments on like this on here, but this is probably like the most dance oriented time. It's probably like the most dance oriented type one on this particular product. I'd say so. Good, nice one, probably one of the most immediate ones to go for in terms of like the casual type appeal, in terms of the aspect of something to say when you realize for folks, when you think of Clay Aiken, it's kind of more within the fashion. I think he might have like a stereotype as far as being like more book smart, kind of just like coffee shop out type music within the tone, but this is one that's not quite as full bound. I mean, it could definitely be like a good foot tap for like a bookstore, just for like probably something that they'd play on like a Friday or Saturday, some of those type pitches for more of like this more casual type jive and swing about it. But it's just with the pitch that it does work for like a dance floor within a relative type sense. It's not the most vicious one compared to other artists or just with other type things within the genre. But it is a nice one, probably one of my more favorite songs on this album. I'd say Perfect Day is a nice one here. It's like a stock kind of sobering balladness kind of get here. Just a quality makeshift embrace that I'd say about this one. Good pep about it. Goes pretty well with this song goes pretty well with Solitaire. I'd say, and it's just a starry-eyed type one. So it's just within the pitch. This has like some of that particular. This just has some of that particular ambition about it. There's some ones on here that have that particular aspect. Some songs like No More Sad Song and I Survived You that just have a little bit just like a more pop type version of a hustle song. Obviously not within the hustle of like get on the grind, get some money, some of that type fare, but it's the concept of just having some ambition for your job as far as this pitch can go. Yeah, it does it. The production fare about these ones like Perfect Day and No More Sad Song have like that dredge of like maybe things are a bitch, work's been pissing me off. It's just kind of the concept of just having some of that upkeep, but just kind of being like fuck it, like I'm gonna get towards it and just have like that particular jive just within the tone as far as getting towards it. Just I mean, it just has like motivation aspects and just a more kind of just like this has those motivation aspects just in a more bubbly type format as far as the nailing of it as far as those particular fares can happen. So it's just an aspect as far as doing that. No More Sad Songs, another one that's pretty similar to Perfect Day, but Perfect Day is a nice one just within the pitch, just that same typical type fashion like Solitaire and some of those type ones I'd have to say within the tone, but I'd actually say that Perfect Day is more similar to Measure of Man just in the tone, but this, once again, some of these type ones, just to understand here that these are very like emoting type songs within the pitch. So some of these type ones, when you listen to some of these, like I would, once again, the songs I'd recommend for more of like a casual type fashion, if you're going from folks like Adam Lambert and Linkin Park and some of those type folks in particular, is kind of more Adam Lambert, Blood on the Dance Floor, some of those type folks in particular. I'd say the particular concept about it, probably some of the immediate starter points would be Touch, When You Say You Love Me, and Invisible, some of those type pitches, and possibly The Way, but it's just within the tone that Perfect Day is still a nice moody type one. I'd say No More Sad Songs, another one like that. It's like another harrowing kind of real talk motivation kind of get here just amidst like the workday slag. I'd have to say about this one, just a good stab of bustle and spirit as far as those tones kind of go. Songs like No More Sad Song and Shine are particularly just kind of more harrowing type ones just in the pitch. It just like the concept of just like workaday kind of slag within some of those type pitches, just balladry that just kind of works within that format, just more tugging type ones. But Shine is another one that's just like No More Sad Song, and I'd say is like a dredgy kind of typical relief from like a long day. It had to say good radio snap for like some commerce. I would feel like here just commerce fatigue pitches like that. Good song to grab food and settle in as far as those pitch kind of happen just within the tone behind it. So it's just the pitch as far as particularly saying it's kind of concept. I mean, some of these type ones, I mean, a lot of these have pretty similar type formats. Like this to say about a lot of these on here: Solitaire, Measure of a Man, Perfect Day, Shine, No More Sad Songs. Some of these type pitches just have pretty similar, just piano tugging type format within the pitch behind it. But I would say that Shine's a little bit more 4 o'clock p.m. type dredge within the tone as far as those aspects going to go. So it's just some good type pitches for some of those type fares. I Survived You is another one that's just like some of these type ballad ones like I was talking about, but I Survived You is like a more homely kind of evening reflected. I'd say here just a moody kind of ballad malaise. I'd have to say just reminds of like Celine Dion's kind of dramatic fog as far as those pitch can happen. So just a pop type one that just gives off some 90s type fashions. Just has that very looming typeness within a sense. Very similar to songs like Solitaire. I'd say Solitaire and I Survived You are the ones that have the most Celine Dion type flavor about them as far as those fares going to happen. A little bit of Perfect Day in there within some of those type pitches. Some of these type ones just have the moody type fashion. I mean, I would almost say like the thing about Celine Dion when I reviewed her, she had like some of that ghostly type sense about it. It kind of has that particular fashion, just something that just feels a little bit more as if like it just things being too late within the fashion as far as particularly saying just the concept of this really like that dramatic kind of harrowing kind of digs in type fashion, just like a ghostly type appeal, just the way it kind of happens with it. But it's just within the aspect, just kind of the aspect that I like some of that dramatic type fog. It's a good type pitch to get more folks that can do that apart from Celine Dion, so it's a good type fare for that good type fare. And then I would say that When You Say You Love Me is a nice one on here. So this is like a light lick, kind of mild late day step out pep I'd had to say here. Just after workshift job, I'd had to say about this one. A good foot tap kind of food get as far as this pitch can go. So just a concept of this. Same sort of afternoon almost within a relative type pitch, or at least something with like some relative spark about it compared to like songs like Invisible and to a lesser extent kind of the way I'd had to say. But it's just within the pitch as far as saying just the concept of, you know, not going to go right home, just pitch like that, not that standard kind of slump, but just like the funk of just like the standard dredge and just caught up in like the workaday kind of factory kind of routine as far as this pitch can go. Just something to kind of have some relative jive just for something. This is definitely another song here that feels like another MySpace primer as far as some of those step out type moments. That just like the car relief of it being like 5:15 p.m. just got done with work like 25 minutes ago, some pitches like that. Just like the mild spark, not so much like a ferocious spark. And that's the thing about this particular album is it has spark about this particular project, but it just does in like a very kind of relatively mild. The energy in terms like the spark and the overall jive for wanting to get crunk and cut loose a little bit never goes really past like 3.5 or 4.5 out of 10 as far as this pitch can happen. For the most part, this album's energy in terms of like its Friday kind of the energy of this album in terms of like its Friday hunger and appetite never really goes past like a 4.5 out of 10 within those pitches. It's kept relatively refrained within the pitch, but still some good constant to have for some of those type sparks of having some of that particular type feel. So it's a good type tone. At least 3 or 4 of these, like I've been saying, Invisible, Touch, When You Say You Love Me, to a lesser extent the way some of these type ones have that relative type appeal. But just with an aspect, this album's pretty much carried by the ballads just being like an echo and a good concept, but like some further extents of folks like Celine Dion, some of those type pitches does in like a very harrowing and occasionally ghostly type format, just something that has like that dramatic type fashion for some emo typeness, but does it within a makeshift type format as far as those pitches can go. Just that standard dredge and just tug alongs within the factor. You get your work loud pack as far as those pitches gonna go, get those concepts, but it is hard on your sleeve, and this is the concept on the wrong day. It might be kind of something where people would question, just depending upon the crowds, that this would be the concept of how you would listen to it. So that just kind of happens to be the pitch. The score gets a 10 out of 10 just in the fair behind it. I would say the social score within those aspects social score within those aspects, I'm going to give like a 7.75 just within the pitch. I feel like this album probably definitely needed at least one dance stepper on here. I feel like Touch is the best song in terms of those formats of being able to do that. I mean, there are other best songs in this project. I really do like Solitaire within those pitches, despite the fact that's more of like the balladry. I do like some of these ballads on here, but I feel like some of the best songs in this project would be Touch, Solitaire, Invisible, The Way in certain senses, and then songs like When You Say You Love Me, some of those type pitches within the genre. So I'd say these ballads are not as good, but they just kind of have a more kind of acquired taste in terms of that particular type format. This really feels like you'd be kind of like, in certain senses, folks might think you're overly sensitive within some of those type pitches, which is not too horrible a situation, but just kind of a concept of just questioning how far you'd be seen as sensitive listening to this as far as this first going to happen. It's just within the tone, so 7.75 social, just in the aspects, I'm good. I mean, like I said, there's minor amounts of weekend appeal about this product, but just not terribly much full bound within those pitches, so 7.75. The album is pretty good within the fashions of it, just more bookstore bound, Panera-bread type pitches, Starbucks within some of those type fares. It's a little bit more, it has a little bit more gracefulness and just more thought out within the pitch behind. So as far as those tones can happen, just a little bit, it's that fashion. So in terms of the future, I'm not really as full bound sure as to what Clay Aiken's been up to in these recent times. I know he's at least dropped several more albums throughout the 2000s as far as those fairs can happen, but I don't know what's up with like the 2010s and even the 2020s as far as those fairs can happen. But this is a classic here, just to be able to say once again it gets a 10 out of 10. It's just the aspect I would say 10 out of 10 as long as you have the learning curve appropriate for being able to handle it within the pitch as far as those particular fairs can happen. Just understand the concept that it just is not the typical kind of jolt of electricity when you think of pop albums and pitches like that. It is very much just more softcore kind of adult contemporary type stuff, that this is really not just Friday, Thursday, Saturday type album within the pitch. But apart from that, when you get past that particular aspect, it is a classic album within the pitch behind it. It just does it in a more kind of just does it in a more mild and homely type format.